Hey there everybody, Brandon here coming to you from the channel. Appreciate you stopping by. What I have in this video is my process of adding a bear to a landscape scene, basically a painting that was already done that customer wanted the bear added after the fact. So if you've got something like that going on a project, or you want to see my process for how I make that happen, let's check out that in this video now. Alright, so what I have done here is I put a little pencil sketch in here. You can see I've sketched in a basic outline of a bear that I'm going to put into this particular scene. I'm going to use a basically a 1/2 inch angled brush here to block in some color. I'm just going to put in some dark color here in this bear form that I have made, and come back with some brighter highlights to define out the shape. So I'm going to just start with a combination of black and raw umber or some brown of some sort, a little bit of blue in there, just making a dark color. Doesn't have to be real specific. This bear overall in this painting is only going to take up 2 or 3 inches of space here in this front corner, so I'm just going to take this color here, and that looks pretty good to me. I mean, it's just something dark to block in this basic shape right here, and then I will come back and highlight. So I'm just going to come in here and touch the areas that I need to darken on this painting here. Form out these legs here, the body of this bear, and you know, again, not really worried about any kind of detail obviously at this point. I'm just blocking this thing in so my highlights will show. So this is just get your basic shape down, which is why I like to start with that pencil sketch to kind of know where I'm going, and get the form of this bear the way I want it before I start putting paint to canvas here, because this paint's a lot harder to remove than some graphite pencil is. So once I start doing this, you're kind of headed in whatever direction you're going. So I think I'm just going to continue to block this in. I'm going to leave maybe some of my areas around the face. I won't block all the way in just yet, so I can put some highlight in there and around these ears as well, so I don't lose my drawing there, my shape and my definition of what I'm putting where. So this right here is mainly just get the large portions of the body blocked in with this darker color. So you just kind of work in these areas that you've defined. If you're painting a bear here, trying to put this thing in a different painting, or just painting a bear in general, block out your big areas first here, which is what I'm doing. Coloring in all the large areas, and I'm not worried about any specific definition of the face or the eyes, nose, and that stuff just yet. I think that's a pretty good starting point here on this. Got ourselves at least a form of a bear starting. Now I'm going to come in here and start doing some highlighting. And all I've done here is add a touch of titanium white. Didn't even really change the brush, I just touched some in there and mixed into this color here. And I'm going to kind of define out these top edges, because my light source here, my sunset's kind of in the top left. So everything on these left edges here that would be catching the most light, I'm going to start to kind of define out here. And I'm just using the top of this brush here to create brush strokes kind of in the direction of what I'd feel like the fur or hair would be laying. So like on these legs, it's kind of more of a north and south type brush stroke here. And I'm not going crazy with this highlight at this point. I've just kind of started to bring in the edges of what will be catching the most light, but I'm going to come back with multiple passes here. So these areas along the body, I'm turning the brush a little bit because I feel the fur would be laying, you know, more along the side. Again, down here on these legs. That'll be the leading edge of that front leg. And then this is the back of the bear just beyond that ear. And then the top of the head right there. Catching some of that light. Just trying to form a basic shape here and create the body shape of this bear. And hopefully when we're all done here, it'll make a little bit more sense. Create the look we're looking for. So I'm just continuing to turn my brush here again in the direction I feel like the fur or the hair will be laying in these particular areas of the body. Small little choppy brush strokes to kind of create the illusion of something fuzzy going on out there. Now my paintbrush has lost a lot of paint here, so when I'm coming into this area it's not nearly as bright as where I was, but I want to define that leg a little bit and the tops of the head here just underneath those ears. Coming down towards the snout, or the nose there. Maybe there's a little ridge that comes around the side of the face there that's catching some light coming towards the snout as well. And you just have to kind of fiddle with this until you're kind of happy with where it's going. Now I'm going to come in here now to define out this snout, this nose a little bit, add just a touch of yellow ochre to kind of creamy up my mix a little bit, create that little tan look that comes around this face or this snout here to the nose, and start to define that out a little bit. So I didn't want to lose my pencil drawing, so I knew where I was going with it. So now I'm going to define that out. The tip of the nose is still dark and black, so I'm not going to color that completely in here with this color. I'm just going to drop in that kind of tan area, leaving a little bit for the nose, the tip of the nose and the mouth. Now that I got some different color going, I want to add a little bit of a reddish brown to the side of that body there. I'm going to put in just a touch of that raw umber back in, maybe a touch of red, and scratch in some different color here along the side of this body, because these bears are brown bears, black bears, you know, they have different shades of color in their fur, and so we don't want just a monotone looking thing back here. So I'm going to bring in just a little bit of a hint of color here. Maybe we'll put in a little bit around this leg and along the side of the body here, just kind of to break up that monotone color that we had going on. That's pretty good to me. So now I'm going to move to a much smaller brush here. This is like an 1/8 inch kind of angled brush here. It gives me a little tighter detail in some smaller areas. So I'm going to start to highlight out some of this other small stuff like the tops of these ears now, coming back with my little bit lighter mix that I had going on to touch the tops of these ears. It'll be catching the light again coming from the top left of this painting here. So the top left edges of these ears will catch some light, be defined out a little bit. And then any of these other smaller areas here that I want to work highlight into, now that I've moved to a smaller brush, I will just finish up this whole bear with these smaller brushes at this point. So you just have to kind of look at the bear and back up from it for a second and say, all right, where do I need a little bit more highlight? Where do I need to find something out? Create a little bit more form, a little bit more shape. So I'm not really seeing, you know, definition here along this side of the face, this neck and this front leg, so I need to lighten that up a little bit. And obviously underneath the chest here and this other leg, I don't want to be nearly as bright because it's going to be kind of shaded from that sunset that's coming down. So this will be the darkest area in here. So I want to keep it dark, but I also still want to be able to at least see something going on in there. Same way with the ears. Still going to be kind of dark in that internal area. I added just a hint, tiny little hint of blue in there for this kind of underneath area that's shaded, because I want a little bit of highlight in here, but I want it to still be darker than my other highlights, kind of in the shadows, so to speak. And this is where my trial and error comes into play. I don't really do much specific color mixing. I just kind of start putting things to canvas here and seeing how it works out. So I'll just be honest with you, if you've got to be an expert at color mixing to be an artist, then I don't know if I'll ever actually be an artist, because I don't do a whole lot of color mixing of anything specific. I just start mixing things together and putting it up here to see what works and what doesn't work. And if I don't like the way it looks, I come back and I change it. Right now here I'm just kind of touching the top of this head again to get the brow down here right along these eyes, shaped the way I want. I want to leave the eye area itself the darkest, but I want to give the bear's face a little better definition here. So I'm just barely highlighting out these kind of like cheekbones, if that's what a bear has, I don't know. And that shoulder there still, I just feel like it's not quite defined enough where I can see it. Because I want to put this bear in here, but it is a sunset scene, so there's not going to be a ton of light on him, but I want you to be able to see this thing, you know, from at least a little bit of ways from this painting. So I'm giving him enough bright highlights. Plus I have all these wildflowers down here that are bright and colorful, so it's not like he's going to stand out amongst them as having more contrast or light to him. I mean, these wildflowers down here are pretty bright, so it doesn't matter if I make him stand out a little bit more. I just want him to be able to catch your eye if you glance at this painting from across the room or something, to say, oh look, there's a bear here. So I want to make sure that we can see what I want to see here. And then I'm going to switch one more time here to my smallest brush for this particular painting. This is a tiny little spotter brush, like a 10-aught. I don't know if you can see that there. That's a little better. There's a tiny little tip there to this 10-aught spotter brush that lets me come in here and do the last little bit of fine detail work. So wherever I want to put my last little bits of highlights, you know, defining out the rest of these eyes and the nose here. So I'm coming in and putting a little bit of a brighter value here on the top of this nose and snout area, across the top, and then down this left edge where our light source is coming from. And this will just put the final little touches of excuse me, of highlight in here. Makes the final product, to me anyway, look the way I want. Makes it stand out in just a couple of areas. It breaks up the monotony on the highlights, so it's not monotone looking, because nothing obviously is monotone looking like this in nature. So there's shadows and highlights and all kinds of things going on here. So anything you can do to kind of break it up a little bit will make it look a little bit more natural when it's all said and done. And at this point, it's kind of how much detail do you want to add. So you could get to a point where you're pretty content and happy with the way it looks, especially if you back up from it. Give it a look from a few feet away. I'm just going to keep messing in here until I have things just the way I want them, because this is just the way I want to do it myself, but that doesn't mean that way you have to paint it. So just touching a little bit more highlight around this nose. And now I'm going to put in just the last little bit of maybe fur highlights here with this little spotter brush. So I'm going to come in here now and put some tiny little brush strokes in along the top of this head, define out the tops of where these the brows or the eye comes in, so I can give this head a little bit better shape by putting in the last little bit of bright highlights here along the top leading edge. Will define out this bear's face just a little bit better, give a little bit more shape. Right down the middle here will be the highest part of the bear's head, and you can kind of see as you brighten this little area up, it just gives that face a little bit better shape. Makes it look a little bit more like an actual bear's head out there. Right along the top of all this, this will be where the most light is reflecting that we can see. Tops of the ears again too, brighten them up just a little bit to match. I just put a few random little things in there just to I don't know, it adds a little something for me. Right along the edge of that eye right there, we can define that out a little better. Same thing over here, we can define that out a little better. Now we can kind of see those eyes in there coming to life a little bit better. The shape of this neck here that comes down. Every little thing you touch adds to it. And then maybe one more little pass of highlight through here to finish out shaping this head. Make it look a little more symmetrical in there. A little brighter highlights along this left edge. Again, where our light source is coming from. A little too bright underneath there. Scratch that out. And maybe I want to just come along the left side of all this now. Darken that back up in the middle a little bit. Like I said, I got a little too bright in there. I don't want to be quite that bright underneath his face. So we can cover some of this back up. It's always a good thing. This edge of this leg is probably needing to be darkened up just a tad here. So I feel like maybe I shouldn't be able to see this side quite as well as what I've got going on. So again, you can make adjustments as needed if it doesn't look the way you want it to look. That's the beauty of this whole process, at least for me. Now I can come in here and define out a little bit of what I want. Somewhere in here is a leg coming in, a shoulder. You see me just kind of smudging it with my finger there. If something's a little too harsh, a little too bright, I can just kind of knock it down a little bit before it dries with my finger. This is right along that edge. I mean, right along that edge. I'm not coming in very far with this highlight at all. Now maybe for my last bit of absolute brightest touches. So this is going to mostly be right along these top leading edges. The last little bit of defining out shape, especially on this left side. This is kind of the point in the painting where you can get a little too carried away with detail. Sometimes maybe put a little too much into it. You just have to find a point where you're content with the way it looks and a stopping point. And I'm getting pretty close here. But I do feel like I want to brighten up just this left side where my light source is coming from with this last pass of highlights. I got the smallest brush in my hand now, obviously, and I haven't really done any highlights with it, so I can do the smallest little detail touches along this left edge and the top leading edges of everything where the most light will be hitting. And so this can be my final pass. Left side of this leading egg or leg right here. And again, this will help. This will help this stand out a lot better from several feet away from this painting when it gets done. Anywhere that there might be some fur poking out here that's catching some light, we'll put the brightest little touches on. Knock down those edges a little bit again using my finger. And I think I'm going to be pretty much content now with that. So now, if we take a step back here and have a look at this, call this a finished product. We can zoom out of this here and see that our bear stands out obviously a little more on that left side where our light is, left and from the top edge. There it is in the painting. And then here is a photo of the total finished painting. Now this is a little further away, obviously. Now you can see our bear standing out down there in that right bottom corner. He's pretty visible from a distance. So hope you guys enjoyed this particular painting. Got a little something from this, watching this that can help you out on yours. Until next time, happy painting, everybody.